Welcome in.
Welcome in.
Why did he do that?
To another ho-hum edition.
You guys want to host?
No, I just wanted to try it out. It's not for me though.
It's good to know though, that's like when it's like take your kid to work day. They're like, oh, I'll never do this. Welcome in to a raucous episode of Sport Ball, I'll say. I'm your boy Sam. With me as always are my two co-hosts, Seth and Kyle. And today we were lathered up and massaged all over by Woj and Schefter just minute after minute as they dropped a bomb on us one after another. I, for one, wasn't ready to handle it. Kyle was texting me, what is happening, every 5 minutes, and I just
didn't stop.
I couldn't keep up. So we had we had some news in the NBA that we'll talk about in a bit. But first, want to hit on the NFL trade deadline that happened today, which was the most wild in history, statistically speaking, I believe. And then after that, we'll get into some of the less exciting things. Well, I don't know, it'll be pretty exciting. At the end, we're going to hit NBA early season overreactions and NFL midseason check-in. But let's hit the good juicy stuff first. 10 trades, right, Kyle? 10 trades today.
10
on
trades
NFL trade
on deadline day.
Most ever.
New record.
Yeah, most ever in history. It was raucous is the only way to describe it.
Yeah, and it started a couple of days ago, and then just really picked up today. We haven't talked yet on this podcast about a trade that happened a few days ago, last week, in fact, where Christian McCaffrey was moved to the 49ers of San Francisco for a second, third, fourth, sixth, and seventh round pick. A big haul for the Carolina Panthers, who
It's like they're trying to teach the Panthers how to count or something.
who started. The Panthers were like, let's start the tank, and then immediately beat the Bucks without Christian McCaffrey. So it was definitely perhaps the Niners paid too much, but boy, that's a fun trade, huh? I mean, just to see one of the best players in the NFL, get out of wallowing in mediocrity to go to a team that has title hopes. It's exciting, right, Kyle?
I mean, it immediately worked, right?
Yeah.
For both
we just
teams.
saw them eviscerate the Rams, essentially. I mean, it was a 2-3 score game, but it looked much worse than the score actually showed. I think McCaffrey was the first Niners running back in 50 years or 60 years or something like that to throw, catch, and run for a touchdown in the same game.
He was the first one since Lindanian, our boy, back in 2005.
Yeah, for just running back for the
team.
league, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But for San Francisco, it's from the 1950s or something.
Yeah,
that had happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've known since he came into the league, right, how dynamic of a player he is, and there's really no better offense, I feel like, for him, for someone like Shanahan that schemes so well around personnel opposed to just trying to put the personnel into his scheme. And that's exactly what we saw finally, right? I think McCaffrey was moved a couple days before the first game he played with them, so he was on limited kind of snap count. But then it was wheels up this past weekend, and man, was it electric. They didn't even have Debo out there.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that offense with
team, dude.
Debo and Christian McCaffrey? Nobody's going to tackle anybody.
No, right?
Yeah, it's like for years we've been like, man, Shanahan has such an elite creative running game. He uses his running backs so creatively. Can you imagine if he had an above average running back there? He's been cycling through undrafted 7th round running backs who keep getting injured after 4 games. And now he has Christian McCaffrey, the best, most versatile running back in the league. And yes, it was a lot to pay for a running back, but when it's a running back who's that elite at pass catching, I think it's worth it, right, Seth?
Yeah. I mean, I still have a hard time calibrating the NFL draft picks and how much they're really worth. And particularly as we collectively, I think, have started to more correctly value NFL running backs, especially as Kyle tries to tell us that running backs don't matter. But I think even Kyle recognizes that like there's a few running backs, especially who
Right.
are elite
Game
pass
changers.
catchers, who can change the game. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty high on the Niners going forward. Obviously, we've just seen them in the one game against the Rams with McCaffrey, fully there. But even with and the Rams have been a bit of a mess, but I don't know. It's an exciting team to watch. They've shown that they can have success in the playoffs before with this team, even if their regular season is a little bit up and down. So I don't know. I don't really want to see this team in the playoffs. I think it would be a matchup nightmare for anyone trying to scheme against Debo, Ayuk, and McCaffrey out of the backfield. Like,
It's like, I know that the amount of picks is vast, which is huge for a team that's rebuilding, but I feel like I've said it a number of times, right? In pretty much any sport, if you could build through the draft, which they've done extremely well, it gives you that option and opportunity when you have a window to win the Super Bowl or to make it to the Super Bowl, or in the NBA to make it to the finals and win the finals. You have that you're able to spend those picks.
you can cash in.
Exactly. Yeah. And kind of capitalize on that opportunity that you've built. And so that's why it's like, yes, it's 4 picks. And to a team that's rebuilding, those picks are huge. But for a team like the Niners, who all of their star players essentially are now on contract until the end of like the 24, 25, even some contracts don't expire for like Trent Williams and Fred Warner until 2027. So it's like they have these guys under contract for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not almost certainly going to be able to pick someone in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round of a draft in next year, 2 years, whenever, that's going to get you the value that these guys have. I mean, we saw it last year with the Rams, right? They gave up, over the last 2 years, they've given up an absorbent amount of picks for game-changing players at specific positions that they needed help at. And look, they won a Super Bowl last year.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's just like the recipe for success, I feel like, in any league is like, if you can capitalize early on draft picks and develop those players and hit on those players, the world is your oyster essentially for the future.
It's just a win for all parties. I mean, the Panthers, they have no use for Christian McCaffrey. They're not going anywhere soon. And it's a win for Christian McCaffrey, right? To finally go into a winning situation. And it's a huge win for the Niners. And it's just cool. Like, it's one of the coolest trades I can remember in a while, right? Like,
oh yeah, hands down.
Just watching him run out there in those colors in the
he looks so good. He looks so
right.
good.
Didn't it just look right? I was like, wow, I'm actually really excited for this. Like, I don't know. It's just cool as an NFL fan to see. So that's still the biggest move, or one of the bigger ones that we saw. That happened a couple weeks ago. Today, Seth, your Vikings.
Yeah, baby.
Made an upgrade at tight end from Irv Smith Jr. to his daddy, TJ Hawkinson Sr., which they paid a 2nd, 3rd, and a 4th for. No, sorry, they paid a 2nd and 3rd, received a 4th back.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very unexpected, I will say, right? We saw the Christian McCaffrey one coming, did not see this one coming. From
I didn't even know Hawkinson was on like the trade block. Yeah. An in division trade, which is like, for the Lions, it really doesn't matter that it's in division because it's not like they're competing, right? But a young tight end with the upside and the skill set that we've seen, and coming out of college being a Mackey award winner, essentially being the best tight end in college his last year he played. It's like, what are you doing for only 2 picks and you didn't even recoup a 1st round? Because he was drafted the 8th pick, I think, in his draft. He was a top 10 pick, I think, right?
I think it was a decently fair return. I think they could have definitely gotten more, Kyle, but I mean, we got to throw it to Seth. Like, Seth, how are you feeling as a Vikings fan? Are your loins tingling right now?
You can tell from over there, huh? First of all, I didn't even realize the severity of Irv Smith's injury until I heard about the
high ankle
trade.
sprain. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's out for like 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Those can get you.
Oh yeah, high ankle sprains are rough. So that, really came as a surprise. It's like TJ Hawkinson, what? And then I realized, oh, Irv was injured.
It's like a huge
So
upgrade.
yeah, I mean, I
Mhm.
think it's a pretty significant upgrade. I mean, me, I was pretty high on Irv, but TJ
Same.
is a little bit more proven, um and I think just has shown more as a pass catcher than Irv has. So I think it'll be great for the Vikings. You guys were texting a little bit earlier, like the Vikings have so many weapons. Just talked about the 49ers, right? I think it's similar at the Vikings where you've got Justin Jefferson as the elite wide receiver. You've got Thielen as a top-notch second option. KJ Osborne's competent. Now adding Hawkinson as the tight end, and then obviously a dynamic running game with Cook and Madison. So, I mean, if there's one person who can screw it up, it's Kirk Cousins. So I look forward to bringing me to the brink of emotional devastation. But I can't help but be optimistic. We're got one loss on the season and just made a trade that I think is improving our offense. So see how it goes. I think the defense has had some horrible lapses this season and has looked terrible at times. But if we can get our act together, I think this team could be legit.
They are 6-1, and no one seems to care. Probably because their quarterback is Kirk Cousins. You see the talent he's surrounded with now. I mean, you have Justin Jefferson, best wide receiver in the league, or 2 or 3. You have Adam Thielen, one of the best number 2s. You have TJ Hawkinson, a top 5 tight end. You have Dalvin Cook, a top 5 running back. Couldn't happen to a better guy, right, Kyle?
No, I mean, what we have, the Vikings are surprisingly 6-1. They have essentially at this point a commanding lead in the NFC North, right? They're up by 3 games on the Packers and the Bears.
And really more because we already beat the Packers this season. So we have the early tiebreaker.
Yes.
Beat the
But
Bears too, didn't you?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's correct. But much like any Vikings season, they haven't won a game by more than 8 points. I mean, I'm looking at these scores since you trounced the Packers week 1, right? Then you lost to the Eagles, no shame there. And Lions 28-24, Saints 28-25, Bears 29-22, Vikings or Dolphins 24-16, Cardinals 34-26. I mean, you guys certainly did not make it boring. That's for sure.
We like to entertain the fans, Why have a blowout when you could keep it close?
I mean, you guys went 0-5, I think, or something like that, or maybe even more than that. Maybe it was like 0-8 last year in one-score games. So I guess it's only fair variance comes back your way.
That regression to the mean. But yeah, I mean, there's 3 teams that are 6-1 and better, and one of them is the Minnesota Vikings. And I mean, I think we kind of talked about it before the season, right? Our division was really up in the air. No one really felt comfortable with anyone. So to say I'm surprised, I'm not really. But it's going to be exciting to see what they could do now that they have such a dynamic, weapons all across the field. Irv, how many games did he even play this year? Because he's been injured already this year a couple times.
Yeah, he missed a
Yes.
couple early.
Yeah.
So
The
It
other
begs
thing,
the question. I was just going to say, the only question that comes to my mind is just, how will the Vikings bungle it this time? How will they inflict the most pain possible on Seth? You
what'll
can't
happen.
imagine it.
That's part of the pain is you don't see it coming. But looking at, we did this with the Eagles, I think twice, going through their schedule.
Yeah.
The Vikings, right? We play Buffalo in 2 weeks and then Dallas the week after. So those are 2 tough games back to back.
But the rest of the season's a cakewalk.
Everyone else we play is like bad or mediocre. I mean, I guess we're playing the Giants on Christmas Eve, and the Giants have been another team that's, looked unexpectedly good this season. But then otherwise, it's like Washington, New England, Jets,
Lions.
Detroit, Indy,
Yeah.
like Bears, Packers. So I don't know. I see, like, I mean, knock on wood, right? The Vikings couldn't lose to anybody. That's within their capabilities. But I feel like we're going to be favored in every game but two the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So even if we lose both those games, lose another one just because, right? That's only 4 losses on the year. Should be a pretty remarkable season for us, I think, considering what preseason expectations were. So we'll see. I mean, obviously they can bungle anything. We could easily miss the playoffs still, but I'm feeling pretty good at this point.
I mean, I don't. There's almost no chance to miss the play. I mean, this division's a wrap. Forget about it. You guys won the division. You're minus 900 for the division right now.
Yeah, they're 96% chance to make the playoffs according to 538. So
yeah,
94% chance to win the division.
So you'll be in the playoffs. It's just a question of will you, like, what kind of heartbreaking way will you lose come playoff time? And that's what we're all excited to see. I'm just saying that because we're not going to make the playoffs, so I have to find joy in something. Yeah. Let's hit a couple more moves quick of trade day. Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins. Chase Edmonds in the first coming back for the Broncos. Love it for the Dolphins. They're gearing up for the playoffs. I saw this on Instagram today. This is kind of rounding out what they got for the Trey Lance deal to the 49ers. So they turned 3 first-round picks from that deal into Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb. I mean, I'm not going to say that's a one-sided trade since Trey Lance is out for this season. Obviously, you can see an injury coming, but the Dolphins definitely made use of those picks, right? I mean, they've built quite the contender, I think, out of that trade.
I mean, offensively, we've seen when Tua's back there, they're one of the best offenses in the league, it seems, that can compete with just about anyone. Can you just
stop underthrowing Tyreek, though, please?
I mean, does it even matter? Tyreek still had like 180 yards and like 10 receptions last week. So
I heard someone say in a pod that Tyreek hasn't caught a pass all season without his back facing the end zone.
Hey, but I mean, that's what good teams do, right? Is like, if Tua's still not at that point where he can make those type of plays that are leading the receivers, then build around him at least and give him the opportunity to still complete stuff by giving him the type of receivers that can adjust and catch balls no matter where they're at in their vicinity. So kudos again to McDaniels. That's not right.
Yep. No, Mike McDaniel, no S.
Yeah, here you go. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the biggest things that they've been missing, right? Is a game changer on defense, essentially. And that's exactly what they got now. So for them, again, it's wheels up, gear up for the playoffs, and make it through the rest of the regular season injury free, hopefully.
Yeah, you can see when you get that pass rusher, that edge linebacker, how that can really change the team, right? I mean, Von Miller put the Rams over the edge for the Super Bowl and may do the same for the Bills this year, right? So that's kind of that last piece that really locks everything into place. I feel like for a defense, getting consistent pressure without having to blitz is just the key to playoff success. Let's hit one more move before we go to the Bears carousel. I mean, Kyle have to talk about. Calvin Ridley to the Jags. Interesting. Very interesting. For a 5th rounder, I think the price was low.
And a conditional 4th.
But it's not sure what the conditions are, so I didn't even include that.
It goes, they can end up getting a 2nd rounder in 2024 or 2025 if they end up re-signing Ridley before his contract expires.
Okay, that makes a little more sense then, because it makes sense it was conditional too, because this is the most talented receiver that got traded over the trade deadline. And the price was only this way because he's suspended this year for gambling. Let's not litigate why that's an over punishment. I think we've already discussed that. And so, if he's ready to go next year, that gives Trevor Lawrence that number 1 receiver he's been craving. Christian Kirk isn't quite that, he's been good he's actually been worth the money they paid him. Christian Kirk has, but he still is best as a number 2, and I think that he'll slot perfectly into that with Ridley there.
Yeah, I mean, he started off the season super hot, right? Both of them were like connected, and it was like every week Kirk was in the end zone or getting 80 plus yards, but it's kind of tailed off a little bit. But yeah, you add Calvin Ridley, who we already know is an established alpha on whatever team he's going to play for. You toss Christian Kirk into that secondary wide receiver role, and then you keep Zay Jones running out of the slot, who's been phenomenal, surprisingly, this year, you know. And then we've seen the emergence of Travis Etienne over the last couple weeks, so much so that they got rid of James Robinson. You know, things were looking up in Jacksonville too. So yeah, that's an exciting trade as long as Ridley comes back and kind of does what we know him to do.
Yeah, I think if Ridley comes back, we'll kind of see, like we did with Jalen Hurts and like we did with Tua, you know, what Trevor really has when he's surrounded with receivers that can really amplify everything he does. So I think it's very interesting trade, that one. Let's hit real quick what the Bears did, Kyle, our beloved Chicago Bears. So they traded Robert Quinn to the Eagles for a 4th. That's fine. We were going to re-sign him. Great for the Eagles to get another pass rusher. Then we traded Roquan Smith to the Ravens for a 2nd rounder and a 5th rounder. Probably pretty reasonable, since it seems like we weren't going to pay him what he required, which was to be the highest paid linebacker in the league. Does hurt it's sad for me. Okay, I like him a lot. He's a very good player, but
incredible player. But I mean, it's just like teams. That's not that type of position where you really shill out that amount of cash. Like he's a tackle monster, but he's not a game changer.
He's not Brian Urlacher.
No, exactly. Like he's gonna get you, you know, 10 tackles a game probably. But
yeah. I will say Ryan Poles didn't ask me if I was willing to contribute my mortgage to keep Roquan with us, which I would have done, but you know, that's fine. Yeah. That'll be great for the Ravens though.
Huge for them. Yeah. That's kind of the one position that they were missing someone. Cause I mean, their defense last year was stellar, right? It's been very hit or miss this year. So having someone like Roquan in the middle that can stop those chunk plays that we've seen kind of a lot against them from teams, running backs up the middle and stuff like that, it's going to be huge. Like that's the type of player they need. So it's great for them.
Yeah. And then we turned a 2nd into Chase Claypool from the Steelers, who was on the trade block for a while. I'm mildly intrigued by it. You know, I'm mildly looking forward to it. Definitely a talented guy. Huge. He's like 6'4", 230, something crazy like that. What do you think, Kyle? I mean, I liked what you said when you said kind of he'll slot into that 1A, 1B with Darnell Mooney, and then that will perfectly complement a wide receiver that we drafted in the offseason if we go after a number 1 receiver.
Yeah, no, I kind of feel like that's what we're building towards, right? And we haven't seen Poles be able to like build his team, get his guys. So this is kind of his first foray into kind of building out the roster how he wants, considering he inherited everybody that we've had previously. We saw Chase's rookie season. Like, I feel like after seeing how he performed with Roethlisberger, with Deontay there as well, he had like 10 touchdowns, I think, his rookie season or something like that. He's a playmaker, but I don't know if he's like that alpha receiver that we need. But to what you said, like Mooney, Chase, and then the top 4 receivers in this draft, who we essentially are kind of locked into getting one of them, as long as, you know, we do draft a wide receiver, which I don't know why we wouldn't. That kind of complements who we're going to add, because any 4 of those guys that are going to be drafted in the lottery this upcoming year, are those alpha receivers. So I like the play a lot. I mean, I was looking the other day, the wide receiver market this upcoming offseason is atrocious. So that was probably another reason that played into this, right? Is there's nobody that's going to be a free agent with all the cap space we have to kind of just sign. We're going to have to trade if we want to get a receiver anyways, trade assets. So, hey, let's trade a second rounder. We still have a second round pick next year now because of the Roquan trade. We're going to move down 10, 12 picks from the second round from where we originally were. But we got a guy that's shown he has the ability, and it kind of feels like hasn't been utilized correctly over the last year and a half, with the last year of Roethlisberger, who couldn't throw, and then this year, whatever the hell their quarterback situation is.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he could be used in the running game pretty well with Fields and some options there. And I also feel like it's nice for a young quarterback, especially Fields, who is a good deep ball thrower and does like to throw up jump balls, to have a big target like that. You know, they got N'Keal Harry, who was kind of like the homeless man's version of that. And, you know, to get someone who Fields can kind of throw it up to it and catch a jump ball, I think will help a lot. I was a little surprised he went for a second. That seemed a little high, but you know, receivers that talented don't often come available, so I don't mind it.
Yeah, the Steelers have this incredible history recently of just developing amazing wide receivers, where they just every year they bring up some guy and then it's like, oh,
they hit on
Deontay
someone in
Johnson.
the second or third round every year, it seems like.
Yeah. So does that mean that Claypool is one of those talents that like Pittsburgh scouted and helped develop, and he's going to be really good? Or does that mean outside of Pittsburgh, maybe it's something that they're doing with their wide receivers, and once they leave might be a bit of a drop off? I'm more inclined to think the first one. I mean, I think he's shown enough skills and like speed and talent.
His highlights,
I think, like you said, he's not going to be a top like alpha wide receiver, number one wide receiver, but I think as a second or third option on any given Sunday, I think that's pretty solid for you guys. But yeah, it's all dependent on if you could actually get that number one wide receiver, and if Fields continues to progress into an accurate quarterback. So,
and he's reunited with his college teammate Cole Kmet, so at least there's some, you know, someone there that he can kind of immediately bond with, that he has previous time spent with.
Any other thoughts on NFL trade deadline before we move on, because we gotta hit other segments here? Okay. Let's hit NFL. Let's hit a little more NFL real quick, and then we'll do NBA overreactions at the end. So if you're an NBA fan, just keep listening. It'll get better. We promise. So I just want. We're almost midway through the season. We're 8 games in. Most teams. Let's look at the standings for the playoffs. We haven't done this yet. AFC right now, 1 seed is the Bills, 2 seed the Titans, 3 seed the Chiefs, and the 4 seed are the Ravens. Those are your 4 division leaders. Wild cards at the 5 seed, we got the Jets, as everyone predicted. The Dolphins, the 6 seed, and the Chargers, the 7. So I kind of want to just touch base here, see how different do you think this will look at the end of the year? In my eyes, I think we'll agree the Bills and the Chiefs will be there near the top as division winners. At this point, seems like the Titans pretty much have the AFC South locked up, which I predicted because I said the Jaguars would make the playoffs. And
no matter how it shakes out, Sam supposedly wins the bet.
I guess the Titans are only minus 280 right now, but I think they have it pretty much locked up. I think that Jets spot is kind of up for grabs, as well as the Chargers spot. What do you guys think? I think the Dolphins might be locked in after that Chubb trade and the way they've been playing.
Yeah, and again, no injuries to Tua or anything like that again, where we see their rookie quarterback starting any more games. Yeah, I think they're pretty much should be locked into a playoff spot. You know, it'll be interesting. Their schedule is, you know, not a cakewalk as much as the Vikings are, which we talked
Mm.
about, right? They play the 49ers, the Chargers, and the Bills back to back to back in December. That's a rough stretch of games.
But they do with the Bears, the Texans, the
Right.
Jets.
The Bears, Texans, Packers, and the Jets and the Pats. The Browns can go either way, right? As we've seen. Though, what week is that? 2 weeks from now. So Deshaun Watson won't be back, and Jacoby seems to only know how to really play on prime time, and that's a Sunday afternoon game, so it should be a win.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna slot the Finns in, and then maybe put the Patriots in for the Jets. By a season's end, the Patriots just beat the Jets, this weekend, and the Brees Hall injury really hurt the Jets. And then I think maybe the last spot might be between the Bengals and the Chargers. This Chargers team, man, is there ever been a team that's every year we're like, oh, the Chargers, 20-1 for the Super Bowl. You like that? And we all like it. And then they're terrible because their coach sucks and they play in a stadium with 75% the fans of the team. And
they
Herbert's
can't
just out
stay
there
healthy for any season either. So
yeah,
you have that as well. No, I mean,
when you have a doctor that stabs your players, you're not going to stay healthy for long.
I think the Chargers stay in. I would say that the Bengals probably replace like the Jets. I know you put the Patriots in instead of the Jets, but I just think that even with Jamar Chase out for a couple weeks, yeah, they had a bad week against the Browns, but the Browns are probably the best pass rush that they're going to face the rest of the way. Well, I guess they do play the Browns one more time. They do play the Chiefs as well, but wow, actually their schedule is rough here at the end of the season. Chiefs, Browns, Bills, Ravens. It might be iffy, actually.
But none of those really have where they really struggle is like you see these losses are all the teams that have elite pass rushers because their offensive line is so poor, right? They lost to the Steelers with TJ Watt, the Cowboys with Micah Parsons, and then they just this past weekend they lost to
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett, yeah. So they have one more game against the Steelers. TJ's probably back for that. They have Isaiah Simmons and the Titans. And then the Browns one more time. I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. It's not
hard to win with that
there.
offensive line.
Yeah,
very hard. So, yeah, I mean, I think that last spot probably is, or the last two spots, so Jets and Chargers are really a toss-up between Jets, Chargers, Patriots, and Bengals.
Yeah,
Cleveland maybe can sneak in, right? If they can just pull out those gritty wins until Deshaun comes back and you have a real playmaker at quarterback, which is week 13, I think.
Yeah.
So
speaking of quarterback, what do y'all think about the way that it's shaken out so far with so many playoff teams, like teams that are slotted into playoff spots for right now, not having elite quarterbacks, right? So you've got the Titans with Tannehill and last week Malik Willis. You've got the Jets, you've got
Patriots,
going into the NFC.
Yet, but
going into the NFC, right? You've got Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, like a lot
Marcus
of these
Mariota.
guys. Mariota, Falcons, like Cowboys, even with Cooper Rush starting most of the games so far this year. Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo, it's like on and on. We used to always, that would kind of be the tiebreaker when we'd be thinking about who's going to make the playoffs at, well, who has a better quarterback, right? Or we just think, you have to have an elite quarterback to make it unless the entire rest of your team is stacked. And we've just seen it this year where quarterbacks who at least we thought were elite, whether it's Rodgers or Brady or even like Herbert, like you were saying with the Chargers situation, those teams have, oftentimes disappointed this year. Do you think that trend is going to continue, or that it'll kind of right itself over the course of the year?
I mean, I think, it seems like this year quarterback has mattered to team success less than any time I can remember in the recent past. But I think when the chips are down for real playoff success, You're going to see the Bills and the Chiefs there in the AFC, I would reckon, who have the two best quarterbacks in the league. You're going to see the Eagles there, who Jalen Hurts, I mean, is an elite quarterback now. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
And you're going to see the Vikings, who I mean have the greatest quarterback of all time. So I think what we're seeing with some of these teams, like you look at the Giants, I think you go team by team. You look at the Giants. That's a scheme-dependent operation they're running over there, where Brian Daboll comes in as a new coach, and like Kyle says, he doesn't come in saying my scheme is the law. Everyone has to fit in or fit out. He says, "What do I have here, and how can I make them successful?" And he says, "Well, Daniel Jones isn't great, but he can run. Let's use that." And Saquon is an elite running back. Let's use that, and they're in every game. So I think it's very coach dependent, and I think it's very rest of team dependent this year. And then these older quarterbacks like Brady and Rodgers and Stafford can't carry a team by themselves anymore if they don't have elite wide receivers. It's just come down to that. They're old. They're the old guard.
Yeah,
They are.
A lot of noodle arms going on this year. Some of them premature.
Let's look at the NFC, like you mentioned, Seth. Your Philadelphia Eagles 7-0. I mean, me and Kyle will be taking naked laps for years about this prediction that we had for them to be the 1 seed. The Vikings at the
who was your Super Bowl prediction again?
I don't know. I'd rather not say.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't understand the question. I won't be responding. The Minnesota Vikings 6-1. Your Minnesota Vikings as a 2 seed. The Seahawks are the 3 seed right now. Remember when I told you guys Seahawks 20-1 to win the division? You like that? You all scoffed at me during the patent pending. You like that, don't you? 6 man segment.
Was
you
that
want to know their odds
before
right
or
now?
after? Was that before or after Geno Smith came out with the iconic quote? They all wrote me off, but I didn't write back. I think that was before.
Before.
No, that was after. That was the first game of the season. You said that.
Yeah.
They're plus 310 now, so you better like that. That was great value I handed to you, and you threw it in the trash.
I'm not going to say I like that when they're in a division with the 49ers and the Rams still.
You can just keep saying you don't like it all you want. I'll be laughing to the bank. The Atlanta Falcons, the 4
He
seed.
says that even though he hasn't put any money on it.
The Atlanta Falcons are the 4 seed, which I said on this podcast would be the worst team in the league, currently winning the division at 4-4. The Dallas Cowboys 6-2. Great start despite missing their quarterback for a lot of that on the backs of Micah Parsons. The New York Giants 6 seed. We all saw that coming. And the Niners at the 7 seed. So that's your 7 seeds in the NFC. If I were to guess how it might end, I think the Niners are going to end up winning the division and taking the Seahawks place. But I'm not going to say the Seahawks are going to miss the playoffs. I think they might sneak into the wild card with Geno Smith. People write him letters daily. And he simply won't write them back.
Kyle, do you remember 60 seconds ago when Sam said the Seahawks would win the division? And then
but
10 seconds ago when he said they wouldn't?
He's a wordsmith, all right?
He's doing it to us again. Now, no matter what happens with them, he'll claim that he was right all along.
That's correct. Call me Sam Adamas. And then are we sure the Buccaneers are going to take the Falcons' place as the division winner in the NFC?
Not at all. Not at all sure.
Well, let's talk about this because you would think the Bucs take the Falcons' place and the Rams or the Packers take the Giants' place or the Seahawks' place.
I don't think the Packers.
These 3 teams, the Packers, Rams, and Buccaneers. I mean, one of them has Tom Brady, won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. One of them, the Rams, won the Super Bowl last year. The Packers have won 14 or 13 games the last 3 seasons.
Have the reigning,
and yet all these teams are out
MVP,
of the playoffs.
right?
What goes on? What goes on, Kyle?
Well, we could start with the Packers. What goes on is they refuse to give Aaron Rodgers any help offensively. It's been talked about for years during the draft. I mean, you had Aaron Rodgers still kind of probably right past the precipice of his prime. They decided to draft a backup quarterback with their first round pick. And it's like, then they got rid of arguably the best or one of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL and kind of just said, hey, it's going to be okay. Didn't bring in any new help besides what a second round and like a 4th round draft pick that they used on a wide receiver. And it's like, when is that organization going to realize that, like, yes, Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best quarterbacks of all time at bringing the value up of the receivers around him. But imagine what could happen to your team if you provide that that talent for Aaron Rodgers instead of relying on him to do all of the dirty work, essentially, right?
But it's also a little bit on Aaron for signing a huge extension that hamstrung the team. They couldn't pay Devontae and him, basically. You know,
And
Sure.
I don't know. I mean,
but you can still draft a cheap wide receiver, right? You know,
we talked in the offseason about like, what does Aaron really have to complain about? Because like you said, Sam, the Packers have been one of the best teams in the league in the regular season, at least the last several years.
With Devontae Adams.
With Devontae Adams. And then, I mean, I still don't really understand how that all went down. Maybe it was just like a simple money issue where they couldn't afford to pay either one. And
I
they
don't think that's true, because I thought the Packers said that they would have matched the offer for
Mhm.
Devontae if he
Yeah.
didn't want to stay.
Yeah.
maybe he's sick of Aaron.
Right. So I don't know. I feel like more of the blame lies on Aaron Rodgers than it does with the Packers organization. And I do wonder how much he's declining on the field versus how much is it just a reality of the weapons that he has.
Yeah.
And, you know, pass protection obviously has been an issue for them throughout the season this year too. So that could be part of it. But I don't think it's going to happen for them this year. And I love it, to be honest. So,
Yeah, it's great. And I think what I was counting on when I predicted them to go to the Super Bowl is, I've said this before, but just their elite defense that hasn't been there at all. I mean, despite first round picks across the board, hasn't been there at all. If there's any of those 3 teams, the Rams, the Pack, and the Bucks, that I think will ride the ship enough to make the playoffs, just because of the division, I feel like it's the Buccaneers. But I mean, they just have to leapfrog the Falcons, who are talent deficient.
That's not really true. Their coach deficient is more so accurate.
Well,
the Bucks just remind me of the Lakers, where you got this one aging all-time player, one of the best to ever do it, and you've got all sorts of drama around the team. And the team that won the championship in the last couple of years, they've lost at least a few significant pieces since then. Team doesn't really look the same as it did in those championship years. And it just seems like an unhappy place to play now, right? Both for the Lakers and the Bucks. And so I don't know. I agree with you. Like, I don't really want to fully count them out because it is Tom Brady and it is a relatively weak division, but I just get that vibe right now that nobody's happy there and it's just continuing to spiral downward.
So you guys think the Bucks, the Rams, and the Packers, they all miss the playoffs? The playoffs just stay as they are, look right now?
I think the Rams could work their way back into it. And yeah, like I said, I wouldn't rule the Bucks out, but I would lean against the Bucks and the Packers making it at this point.
So you guys like the Rams as the one to ride the ship? You like that, Kyle?
Yeah, I like the Rams. I like the Bucks too, to be honest. I think the 49ers leapfrog the Seahawks for the division. And then I mean, I'm not going to put it past the Rams to not go on a run. They still got Cooper Kupp, right? there's got to be at some point. I think we've kind of seen a little bit more out of Allen Robinson the last couple weeks, which has been good for them. Higbee's been great for them offensively. I think they've had some running back issues, and I kind of feel like they can peruse that a little easier with having someone like Cooper Kupp, getting 15 plus targets a game. So I'm not gonna say that I think that they miss the playoffs. I think that they make the playoffs. I think if anything that the Giants and the Falcons could drop out.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Seahawks. I can see the Seahawks dropping out too.
That would be my
But I don't think the Packers make it. I do not.
I think we're all in agreement, just especially because of the division, right? That's the one team that is in the worst position. Real quick before we hit the NBA, MVP watch: Josh Allen plus 120, Jalen Hurts plus 350, Patrick Mahomes plus 400. Those are the three favorites. This is all on DraftKings, sponsor us. Coming in the 8th best odds, the greatest of all time, Kirk Cousins. You gotta love that. That's good value.
Is it though?
Can you imagine Kirk Cousins winning the MVP? We'd have to disband the league, right?
I would have to retire from watching football, I think.
Okay, you ready to hit the NBA? Let's hit the NBA.
Let's do it.
Fine. Do one more thing about Kirk Cousins.
I was just gonna say I'd be shocked to see anybody win the MVP besides Allen, Mahomes, or Hurts at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Micah Parsons should be up there, but I'm not going to go on my seasonal soliloquy on why it's dumb that a quarterback wins it every time. That'll be later in the year, so tune in.
Can't wait.
Let's hit the NBA a little bit, folks. Just real quick here because it started. We got basketball.
Yeah.
Boy, that was exciting, huh? Some news in the NBA today. First of all, before we get to, I just love to talk about the actual play of the game, but I guess we never can. Steve Nash was fired as the Nets head coach. Well, it was like a mutual party of ways. Steve Nash was probably like, thank God, yeah, get me out of here. And then Ime Udoka is rumored to be in as the new coach. I don't know if they've made it official yet, but I think they're working it out. Very, very, very interesting scenario, is it not? Udoka got suspended from the Celtics, had to leave. Now is leaving the organization. We still don't really know the full story with Ime. Seems
crude language he used is what an ESPN article from last month said was the crude language to a what's the word? Not a superior, someone below him. Yeah, subordinate.
Yeah, it seems like he had a relation with a female employee who was basically he was their boss, and then the relationship ended, or the female employee wanted it to end, and then he was making inappropriate comments, etc. So definitely not ideal. We don't, like I said, know the full story, but guess the Nets don't care. They already have a dumpster fire over there. So I guess they figure why not bring that in, and if anyone can rally the troops, it's Ime Udoka. I mean, they have Simmons airballing layups over there. They have their star player KD just asked for the entire organization to get fired, or he gets traded this offseason. They have Kyrie Irving spewing anti-Semitic things. I mean, this team is in free fall. So I don't know what goes on over there. Does this even make a difference?
I think it makes a difference. I mean, we have, right, before Nash took over, we didn't really have much of him kind of successfully leading an organization. And I guess we have a year of Ime now successfully leading an organization to the finals. Prior to that was under Popovich for what, like 10 years or something, or 8 years or something like that. Won a championship with them. If there's anybody that you kind of want as a younger coach, I would want them to come from a Popovich tree, I feel like. He has ties, right? He knows the players already in the Nets organization. He was there before he went to Boston. So, it's not like it's some fresh meat coming in for kind of Kyrie and Durant to take advantage of. So I like the decision to kind of maybe try and reinvigorate the Nets and kind of get them back to a cohesive unit as much as they can with the players that they have. And if it doesn't work, then guess what? You have someone else to blame it on instead of the players.
Heaven forbid we blame Kyrie Irving for what's happening. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a decent amount of sense, especially considering Ime was an assistant with the Nets before joining the Celtics. A lot of the players seem to like him. Last year, Kyle mentioned the success that the Celtics had, and he did have to kind of help manage personalities in the locker room and make sure everyone like didn't get too frustrated with Grant Williams constantly chatting and Marcus Smart doing his thing. And I think he was one of those coaches that didn't just let the players like do whatever they wanted, and he held them accountable and spoke the truth to them. And so I think that is what the Nets need. But like Sam was saying, I mean, it's a mess over there, and they're really just leaning into this like villain identity where they're by far the easiest team in the league to root against. You've got, yeah, Sam kind of already outlined it, but it's like Kyrie and KD at this point, and Ben Simmons, like none of them are likable to a casual NBA fan. And now adding someone in who is just suspended for a year for having an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee and cheating on his wife, like
Fiance.
Yeah, like it's pretty messed up what goes on there, and I look forward to continuing to cheer against them.
Yep. Agree with everything you said. Let's throw out some NBA early season overreactions that we actually kind of believe in, because we're not just another podcast that does overreactions. May I begin?
Please.
Now this first one, I come to you humble with my heart in my hands, okay? And I tell you that I was wrong. Hear it. Okay? I was wrong. 3 simple words that I've never heard from Kyle's lips, nor will I.
That's false, I think.
I think he says.
He says that's false, I think.
This has got to be about Dame, right?
All right, yes. My
Has
number
to
one
be.
overreaction. This is the best team the Blazers have ever assembled around Damian Lillard.
Dude, the first one I wrote down was, this is the best team Dame has ever had.
Holy shit.
Can I take my victory laps early then?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, at the last
you.
podcast, you said you're going to listen back to the audio and jerk off or something. I don't know what you said when Dame is winning in the playoffs, and you can start right now. You just look at the wings they have, like Josh Hart and Jeremy Grant compared to Mo Harkless and Al Farouk Aminu. Like Josh Hart and Jeremy Grant can dribble. They can dribble, they can score, they can pass, they can rebound, they can shoot. None of which Mo or Al could do. None of those things they could do, especially not together. And Anthony Simons is just a bouncier CJ at this point. Shaden Sharp is that
exactly what I
X
said.
factor. Shaden, you never know what Shaden's going to do, right? And
yeah, I mean, we talked about that before the year too. It was like, that was that one draft pick where it was like, he has the ability to end up being one of the best players from the draft, but there was so much unknown about him. But man, has he proven it?
It's like the mystery man, but like it's like the if you get the mystery lollipop flavor and it's your favorite one, you know? I mean, it's incredible. They just surrounded Damian Lillard with athleticism, with defense, with speed, and this team's fun to watch, right, Seth?
Yeah, it's been awesome to watch. And I think the other big part, in addition to the pieces that they got, which shout out Jeremy Grant, Syracuse basketball player, Dame looks like himself again, right? That was the biggest thing that I talked about. Like it really just depends on, is Dame himself, or is he starting to, head towards a downward trajectory of his career. And so far, he's looked like himself. And it looks like, hey, we can chalk up the last couple of years to injury. And really, it goes back to I was just a year too early on this because it was, you recall, before the previous season, I predicted that they would make it to the finals. So I think the main thing here is that Kyle and I were right and Sam was wrong.
Yeah, that's correct. And I have the guts to admit it.
They also, right, they don't even have Gary Payton back, the second, of course. That's going to be another huge X factor, I feel like, coming off the bench, giving that spark on defense, which is what he's shown us that he could do so well when he was with the Warriors. Like, they're going to be a dangerous team.
Yeah.
It's exactly how I imagined, even though I can't imagine things, exactly how I foreshadowed this would go.
Yeah, I think, before the season, I was like, they'll be in the back of the play-in or not even in it. And now I think they have a great chance to avoid the play-in, be a top 6 seed, and maybe even higher than that. I mean, they're the 1 seed now, so just hold on to that. All right, who wants to give me an overreaction next?
We were all wrong on the Jazz.
Yeah, one of mine was the Jazz will make the
Oof.
playoffs and like not be in the play-in. Well, either way, they might be in the play-in, but I think they'll make the playoffs unless Danny, which I think is pretty likely, Danny blows it up even further and continues to trade away their good players because even their bad players are too good. But yeah, just watching like even the team chemistry that they have and how they kind of have that nothing to lose mentality where it's like, hey, we're not even supposed to be winning. Let's just keep this rolling. And, Lauri Markkanen looking like an all-star, Kelly Olynyk reigning from deep. Like, they're a fun team to watch, which you never would have expected to say about the Jazz after they traded their 2 best players.
They're such a ragtag cast of players that just seem to fit so well together. Jordan Clarkson has been a new player this year with his
he's
ability
passing the ball suddenly.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he's demonstrating some passing abilities that we never knew that he even had. I mean, think if the Bulls still had Lauri Markkanen.
Lauri is averaging 23
right
and
now,
9. Dude,
yes.
Lauri, yeah.
And the best thing that they could have done is limit the playing time of Colin Sexton, which they've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought Sexton would be the star of this team, but it really hasn't been that case. It's been Clarkson running the offense because Conley, needs some breaks. Jordan Clarkson is averaging 5 assists right now. Jordan Clarkson before his season barely threw 5 assists in a game before. I mean, he only wanted to score. It's just the kind of this adaptability of all these players that's been so cool to see. Yeah,
my boy Malik Beasley's having a year too. I mean, he showed it in Minnesota. He's been a Stogie boy for a while. It's good. I'm glad to see it happening. It's a fun team to watch.
Really
much better than Utah teams of the past.
There was always so much tension, so much pressure on those old Utah teams, and now it's just happy-go-lucky, just fun to watch. I love it. All right, Kyle, give me one of your overreactions.
Everything. I feel like everything we're going to talk about is kind of the Western Conference. The San Antonio Spurs, who we thought were going to be in the race for Wemby, they might be in the race for a playoff spot. I don't know if that's an overreaction. I feel like just based on 7 games, but they're kind of similar to the Jazz in the sense that they've put together a cast of players as well that are like young and just
hungry.
Don't stop. Yeah, young, hungry. They don't quit. Like Keldon has, he was great last year. He's taken another leap. Devin Vassell being a full-time player, he's been incredible as well. And then you got Jacob Poeltl, right? Just doing the damn thing out there at center. He's a walking double-double.
Yeah, Pop before the season said, don't bet on us to win the title. Don't take that bet. Was he trying to throw us off?
I think he might have been.
Was he trying to keep the odds high so he could cash in? It's kind of weird with the Utah and the Spurs. It's like they're both a collection of like they don't really have any like really bad players, I guess. I don't know. They're all like decent. There's no like stars in either team, and they're all just kind of like, yeah, let's just go out there and play our hardest. And that'll do it against against a lot of teams in the NBA in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, not to say they're like the Pistons of old, right? Where they didn't really have any superstars, but that's kind of like the mentality. I feel like it's like they don't go out there every night thinking we're expected to lose, we're gonna lose.
Yeah.
They just go out there and play hard as shit and then win.
Yeah, I think the question with both the Spurs and the Jazz is if management steps in and says, all right, enough of this. Here's a fake injury here. Here's a fake injury there. Here's a trade here and there. Let's get to the bottom for Wemby, But if not, these teams can certainly compete on a night-to-night basis. No question about that. May I give you my second overreaction?
Please.
The Clippers will miss the playoffs again. I don't like what I'm seeing one bit from this team. What are the title favorites going into the year? Kawhi can't even go on the road trip because his knee hurts too much.
It's honestly out of control with load management with him. Like we've let this slide for years.
No, I think it's a real problem now because they're being like Kawhi seems like frustrated that he can't get on the court. It's not just load management because he's missed the last like 3-4 games. I think there's a serious problem. Remember, they're talking about this on the mismatch the other day. Like when he had that injury in the Spurs, it was like, oh man, I don't know. Like this soft tissue is kind of being degenerative. Like this could cause long-term problems. And then it was fine for a while. Like he may never be the same again. That's what I'm worried about. And they needed Paul George needed to have 35, 9, 8, and 6 steals to beat the lowly Rockets last night. And it's
on a buzzer beater, essentially.
Yeah, dude,
he hit the go-ahead basket with 6 seconds left, and then Eric Gordon missed the game-tying layup.
Yeah, Paul George basically had to play like he had 8 arms for them to even beat the worst team in the league. And like coming to this season, we were like, man, the Clippers, the deepest team in the league, and it's like all these players kind of suck. Like I don't know, like. Reggie Jackson isn't that good. Nicholas Batum doesn't have much left into the tank. Marcus Morris Sr., who he leaves me cold. Robert Covington hasn't been playing. Luke Kennard isn't that good. Like all these guys are fine. Yeah, but only if you have a healthy Kawhi,
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they're all kind of like, if they're your 6th, 7th, 8th man, that is a good team. And so it's kind of tempting to think of them as deep because they're all like bench players that you've heard of, right?
Right.
But when you're asking them to actually like take Kawhi's place, Norm Powell's not going to be able to do that. So I don't know. I think they're going to right the ship. I think that is a bit of an overreaction to say they're going to miss the playoffs, but I think it's, I think their chances of being like 1 or 2 in the West are very low.
I had them in the play-in before the season started, and they haven't done anything to make me think that they deserve to be in the play-in. So
they're like the Chargers of the NBA, man. They always look good on paper.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone have more? You guys want to throw out another overreaction?
I've got an interesting one here. I was just kind of looking this up. So my overreaction is that we will have more than 5 players at the end of the year who averaged 30 points or more. Right now, there's 10.
Yeah.
Which is completely out of control. So I'll just list them really quick. Doncic, Giannis, Morant, Durant, Mitchell, Curry, Lillard, Shea, Tatum, Kyrie. And then Booker's at 29.3. So there's 10 right now. And I just went back and looked like since 2010. There's never been a year. There's only been 1 year where there was 3 players average 30 or more. And all the other ones were 2, 1, or 0. And that year that it was 3 was the 1920, I think it was. And that was the year, it was Harden, Beal, and Lillard. And Beal was at 30.5 and Lillard was at 30.0. So they're like barely over that threshold. But scoring has just been off the charts this year. And, some people have been talking it's because of the elimination of the take foul rule, which has been a godsend. Thank you, everybody.
Completely changed how much I love basketball. I feel like all the cool plays are back.
Yeah. And, I think all those players that I listed off are legit scorers. And I think that's like an awesome thing for the league to have so many star players who are scoring at that rate. So I could see it continuing this way. I mean, I'm guessing some of those players will drop off from that 30 point per game threshold, but I could see it being 5+.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, it's like it's not like you named like big players with a small sample size. Those are the best players in the league.
Yeah.
My last one.
Yeah.
It's not an overreaction to me.
I've
been a fan for years, but I think it's rather evident now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best player in the NBA that the average fan doesn't know.
How could we? Because he has a fake injury every year while they tank.
He's so goddamn fun and so good.
He's really
good. He would
be
such an absolute game changer on a team that is ready to win. He does absolutely everything. He has at least one or two like, oh my God, did he just do that plays per game too? It's insane.
He just has a different game than most scorers too. It's like a herky-jerky. You're never quite sure what he's going to do next. Kind of moves at a slower pace than you'd expect. I'd love to see him back in the playoffs because when he had his first shot at the playoffs with the Thunder that weird CP year, he did not play well. So I think he's greatly improved since then. Yeah, and I think he's ready. He's ready to show it on the biggest stage. So once they get Wemby at small forward, we'll be able to see it. Oh, that's good. I have one more, but it's not. I don't really have anything else written down. I just have that the Lakers are the worst team ever assembled in the history of basketball. This includes overseas.
They should be relegated.
Anywhere. Yeah. Oh man, I thought they were gonna go 0-82, but they pulled out a win.
If only.
They're so bad, and like I don't even know what to say. Like I feel bad for LeBron. I want him to do well. I don't want to give those the old heads that kind of watch the NBA but not really, but are all about Jordan's the greatest player of all time. There's no debate. I don't want to give them the satisfaction of LeBron having losing seasons.
Okay, well, I mean, this is 20th season of the league. I think he's allowed to lose one season if Patrick Beverly is the second best player.
You're preaching to the choir, right?
Yeah.
But it's just that ammunition that I don't want them to have.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that'll do it. I don't know what we didn't cover. I think there's no stone left unturned on this earth that we didn't talk about here today. Kyle, I would like you to send off our listeners in whatever way you see fit.
Man, I wasn't ready to be put on the spot, even though I am every single time we do this. To our fans, all three of you that don't watch the NBA, watch a Spurs game, watch a Jazz game, watch a Thunder game, God damn it. Live life to the fullest. Thank you.
Amen.